I agree with what Anshoo was saying. That is very well articulated. In the career mobility, I think that the definition of competencies can help us understand where we are, and then help us understand where we can get to. What are the possibilities? What are the opportunities out there? And one competency that is often overlooked is this competency to handle ambiguity, the competence to be agile, have a desire to learn. So sometimes we might set up a training course, and at the end of it, we don't feel that the people really learned a lot, or maybe they weren't taking it seriously. Maybe we take a step back and say, to Anshoo's point, are we recruiting people that have a desire to learn, that have a hunger to better themselves? And maybe we need to bring more folks like that into our organization. And maybe we should teach these kind of skills to say, through a typical change management process, saying, yes, you can stay where you are, but here is the consequence in the future if you simply stay where you are. Because the world's going to change around you, automation's going to change around you. So by learning new skills, you're just going to be able to flow into this new kind of work, hopefully better paid kind of work. You're going to have a more satisfying career. And going back to this point of the mass exodus, when people feel that their employer is caring about them in the present and in the future, they feel this kind of social connectivity to their employer. So again, for L&D to not only just teach skills or teach the behaviors, but kind of get to the supporting personality traits that will help enable people want to learn and want to grow and want to fill these new roles that are evolving.
Thank you. Thanks, Eric, for that. It's very clearly identified, like, why is competency-based learning important, not just for learning what's true for today, but for your future growth, and in fact, even for different kinds of roles, which we would have never imagined we could play. So I can definitely easily see the benefit of implementing this in an organization. So the next question obviously comes as, okay, if this is so good, what are the challenges, I mean, along the way? And maybe what I should do is ask our audience here first, what do they think if they had to implement something like this in their organization? There's a poll which is up on your screen. What challenges do you see you would face while implementing something like competency-based learning? Rohan?
Yes, Poonam. So we have 77% of our audience who have participated. I'll quickly end the poll. And share the results.
Okay. So Eric and Anshoo, any thoughts on the audience poll results? Does this resonate with you while you're talking to other organizations, or Anshoo, while you implement this in your organization?
It does. It does to a great extent. And I think, you know, so I'll tell you, and I kind of see those questions were kind of right on the money in terms of what was defining the competencies, right? We talked about the model in terms of for a particular role to be performed, you really have to have the role definition correctly, and you have to have the competencies defined in those buckets that I talked about: attitude, skills, and knowledge, ability, skills, and knowledge, and the proficiency levels. And that's not an easy task, even though a lot of that is available. It requires an execution discipline, which is hard. So it might sound straightforward, but it is not, because, you know, it's one of those. I kind of even call this maybe a soft skill, to have the discipline to do some of this. Yeah. We just take it for granted. We just think, hey, you know, I can do this, and so you kind of end up ignoring that. But so having that framework or the model is as clearly as was identified by the participants. The other three areas are equally challenging, and I'll tell you where we have struggled. So one is the model and the framework, and of course, some mechanism, whether it's spreadsheets or a tool which enables that framework to be operationalized. Where am I? How am I performing? What do I need to do? What are the gaps and so on? The second is the content. Okay, I know that this is where I am and this is where I need to go. So where is the content which goes along with helping me, audio, video, whatever kind of content which gets me to get better, right? Now it can be push learning, it can be pull learning, we can keep that aside, but then the content piece becomes critically important. Yeah. The third piece which becomes important, or is a challenge in what I've seen is around, okay, well, the best way to learn is hands-on. So while I give you the content, but am I giving you the ability to learn hands-on, and you're getting into stuff? And again, I'm talking a bit on the technical side. So clearly, hands-on becomes increasingly important. By the way, hands-on is equally important for welding, as it is for full stack Java development. So the hands-on piece becomes critically important. And then finally, if you've done hands-on, hey, how do I do the validation and certification and benchmarking against the stuff? So I think those four things taken together become the challenge. And I would say that as we have talked Poonam offline, it's you don't have one way to kind of solve it. So you have certain tools or methods which are good in one area versus the other, and you have to kind of pull it all together. And then if it's not in one place, then the discipline that is required to make it work effectively starts to, hey, I need to two systems. You're asking me to go here to do this, and the other place to go. So those other aspects become resistance to change that we are trying to drive as we bring something like that into the organization.
Great. Thanks for that. Sorry, Eric. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I think the other thing worth mentioning here is developing and maintaining competency definitions and competency frameworks is hard. So it needs specialists, it needs experts, it needs people actually doing the work to define it. And this is one of the reasons over the last decades that we've struggled with this. The good news is there's a lot of effort into trying to make this easier. So as you heard at the beginning of my introduction, I'm the chair of the IEEE group to develop recommended practices for developing competencies. And in that role, I also work with the IEEE group to develop the schemas for database schemas for holding competencies. And our goal between those two groups is to help competency definitions become more discoverable. So that the idea of Creative Commons competencies will be out there. So we're already working with groups that are making kind of open source competencies. Now they'll have a container, a schema, and the schema is designed in a way that they can be discoverable. And we will get to a place through other initiatives that are going on where we can do a search for competencies, and we can pull it in as a database. So one is discoverable, another is transformable. So we've got the IEEE schema, there are other schemas, but as soon as you've got a competency into a machine readable format, you can transfer it to other formats. If you're stuck in a PDF file or a Word file, you're going to struggle to transform it and kind of reuse it. And the advantage then is if we're making things discoverable and transformable, we can then make them tradable. So it'd be much easier for us to buy saying, well, here's a company that does competency definitions and competency frameworks. I'm going to buy that in or license it free of charge. It's through a Creative Commons way. So now we're going to get more and more of these competencies that will be understandable, informative, and there'll be some transparency. We'll say, well, these are the medical competencies that are used at national level, at the regional level, in this other countries. So, well, what's enabling all this also is things like natural language processing, machine learning. So tagging content to match with competencies has been hard. It's been a manual process. Someone would have to know this content matches to this competency and this competency definition. But now with more intelligent machines, we can start tagging up. They won't be right. They won't be 100%, but they'll be better than not having it. And we could also use kind of social grading systems to say that was a good piece of content that helped me gain competence at this level in this competency. So we're going to see more and more tools start evolving based on standards work, based on smart companies like Harbinger, to make this much more practical to use going forward. So we know they've been hard in the past. They're going to become easier in the future.